Welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. Happy day to you, sirs and ma'ams, and all the in-betweens.
All the things, all the things. Hello, hello. Wow. So I had a bit of an epiphany this week, and we want to talk about that today. And this epiphany is surrounding the topic of manifestation. Sorry, a little fuzzy, just like I went to grab for it. Anyway, digressing. So in my epiphany, and maybe I start with that epiphany story, and I'm sure many of you are going to be able to relate to this. So I was driving with my husband to an event, and in that conversation, I said to him, sometimes I get frustrated because things that I'm working on, and, honestly, things you and I are working on, they don't always come to fruition as quickly as I'd like them to. And so that frustration comes from this attachment of an idea that what we are attempting to manifest will magically appear in front of our eyes in the time frame in which we've determined. And so by thinking that way, I started going down this like thought process rabbit hole is what I'm going to call it for a minute. And here's what I said. I said, out of all of the content creators, the spiritual teachers that are out there, the people that post all the things about manifestation and, which, by the way, the amount of content out there, including now ours, is insane. Everyone has their own practice, their own idea, their own interpretation on how to get to this, this thing that is wanted, right? And so for me, I was having a moment where I was thinking kind of more along the lines of a place from lack, right? Mm-hmm. Which all the guides out there will tell you is not the greatest place to be in when you're trying to manifest, right? So my thought process went like this. I said, in my opinion, I believe that in order to manifest something, it doesn't require just the thought, that it also requires some form of action and some form of embodiment of this future version of me that I want to be. So what does the future version of Shyra look like? And this is where the rabbit hole got real thick or deep. And so going with it, we're going with it, y'all. And so I was like, okay, this version of Shyra wakes up every morning. She drinks a cup of coffee. She takes her time because she doesn't feel stressed. She doesn't have any thoughts or emotions towards feeling like she doesn't want to go to work. She's happy and excited to start each of her days. She works out, after or before the cup of coffee, who knows? She meditates every morning because she has time to do so, because she makes her own schedule. And then following that, there's a shower and getting dressed involved, and then a drive to meet you, Carrie, at some beautiful brunch place where we take our laptops and we work on client emails and content that we're going to create, and, our to-dos. And we're having, an in-person discussion because I miss those, right? And because we actually have time to do it. And that the only problems that arise are like with vendors, because we have Divine Living, is the only problem that arises are vendors that are not delivering, in a decor piece on schedule, right? Which, and I'm sitting here thinking about this future version of me, this beautiful like place to be in my space, in my head. And when I got to our destination, because I'm pondering this, I'm like, how do I embody that version of Shyra? What steps do I need to take to get to her? And you said something really magical to me. And the first thing you said was, you have to get started on one of those, right?
One of those habits, routines. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which led me back to the thought process of taking an action towards becoming the person that I want to be. And there's so many misconceptions, in my opinion, about manifestation. You know, do I believe that your thoughts create your reality? Yes, I do. But I also believe that your thoughts create you as an individual performing the actions that you do on a day-to-day basis. So if your thoughts are, which this is a common one for me, all I want to do is sleep, right? Because I'm tired. And like, then my now new thought pattern that is driving me on a daily basis is to find a way to go to sleep, right?
And everything connected to that, like, I'm tired.
Correct. And, you know, and so this is like the conversation that I want to have with you, my best friend, when we're going through these things, and my audience, and, you know, and just talking about like, how do you get to a place where you can start to take those little small steps to embody this future version of yourself until you get to the point of being that future self that you were wishing to be in the first place.
And I think one of the biggest key points there is that the manifestation is not just a simple wish and prayer. It requires action. To manifest is a verb. It is an action that we must take to create what we want in our lives. So first off, getting clear on what it is that you want. Like you said, visualizing who it is, how you see yourself, moving through your day in the future, what you feel like moving through that day and those experiences, and basically figuring out the details so that you can determine what kind of steps it is that you can take. And it can be very overwhelming to think, oh man, there's like all these new habits, all these changes that I'd have to make to get there. But just focusing on one to start, it could be that spending 5 minutes in meditation every day is where you start to get to that 30 minutes of meditation every day.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes is a lot easier to comprehend and not feel overwhelmed. And just practicing that for a few weeks, I think it's like 21 days is, kind of the threshold in which you start to create habits and new routines. So giving yourself space to just focus on that one thing for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually caught myself yesterday having a conversation about journaling, and I said out loud, man, I'm terrible about journaling. And my friend piped in and goes, you shouldn't say that. You should say, I journal. I journal every morning, and I was like, ooh, good point. Like changing that thought process behavior to then become embodying of who and what it is that you want to do. That was a magical moment for me.
Yeah, and I think that's another important aspect is, taking those thoughts about what we are lacking that don't reach those goals that we are working on manifesting, and adjusting our perceptions of how we state those things so that we're creating more of a positive light around it, and potential for action to create those positive affirmations in our lives.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a bit open this morning due to the meditations that I do on our Sunday mornings to receive guidance and help when we're doing these recordings. And so, and what I just heard now was, don't forget to mention the magic. And I was like, and the assistance that you receive. And I was like, okay, elaborate. right? Like elaborate on what you mean by that. And so here's what I'm getting. So I'm just going to repeat it. There is seemingly magic in what it is that you do when you're creating a thought to discover or hear, receive, learn, manifest something. So, for instance, when you are going through a thought process like something more simple, sorry, I'm talking to them, something more simple. When you're going through a thought process of like, I want to manifest a free cup of coffee. Okay. They're using something now, somebody else, there's a different YouTuber out there that mentions this. And so I want to say that because I don't want to take credit for that. And I've watched that video. And so I think they're referencing for me to understand it better, right? Okay. So when you're doing a manifestation magic moment trip, that's funny, trip, those types of things can be assisted by your divine guidance, by your guides. They can bring about situations into your every now moment, but it's not to be something where you fully rely on that without taking action, because what are you learning by doing so? And wow. Okay. I'm going to stop them for a second. That's powerful in my mind, because to me, that's kind of like saying, when you decided to embody as a human and go through I'm going to call it trials and tribulations. That's not what they would say. Of this world of polarity, right? Like these ins and outs of like, dang it, I want to be here, but I'm not here. I'm back over here. Like all of that, right? When you're going through that, if you start to become aware of the fact that even the things that don't feel good are assisting you and you were learning something from those experiences, the much higher version of you that's maybe not in a physical form necessarily knows that, right? And so this brings me to my manifestation of lottery numbers. This keeps coming up. This conversation keeps coming up. They're like, if I met a psychic medium, right? And the first thing I'm going to ask for is lottery numbers. And when somebody asked me that question, I said, well, but if that's not for your highest and greatest good and bypasses all the things that you came here to learn, then that's not something that's going to be given to you. Don't you think I've tried those lottery number tricks?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I was like, it is highly possible that those lottery winners, maybe that was part of their path. That's something that they were meant to have. Right. So that's wild. So I want to make sure that I circle this back for just a second as to why I brought them in to say this, because there is a lot of magic in working with your guides. There is a lot of things that can come about that seemingly are like, oh my God, I was just thinking of this, and this earlier today, and it got brought into my awareness. It's manifestation, right? And those things do happen. That guidance is there. That universal whatever, it's present, right? But what Carrie and I want to talk about here is the action, right? This entire new concept of who you want to be. Like, if you're not happy with where you're at today, how do you get to the place where you are? Okay.
So I'm going to share your story that you shared with me. And so you feel free to pipe in with the details. So you were talking about, prior to recording, the act of manifesting the house that you currently own. And you were sharing with me some of the things that you did to actively manifest it prior to even finding it on the market in the first place. So you utilized the magic of daydreaming to the fullest extent, to the point where you were on Pinterest creating a huge board of this specific home before you ever knew that it was actually a real home.
That's true. I did.
And you were very specific on the details that you wanted in the house.
Mhm.
You decorated the home
Yep.
without even having the home. And it appeared, it sounds magical, right? Because
Yeah.
there is a level of magic, but it came into your awareness. It presented itself on the market at the exact time that
That is true.
you were house shopping.
That's true. Yeah, that was, we'll share
But
that.
hold on. One other thing though, the other actions that you were taking was to prepare yourself to be able to buy a home as well.
Oh my
So it's
gosh.
not just that you
Yeah.
were daydreaming about the house, you were saving money, you were doing research on loans and,
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. And so there were definite actions that you had to take to be able to buy the home
Yeah.
once it presented itself.
That is very true. Wow. I should tell that story because I hope this one hits home for people. Um, this is the good, bad, and the ugly. And you know what I'm saying? Like this is like the thing that matters to me. Um, when I got this house, before I got this house, the things that led up to it, I was at a place, in a job that I was at. It wasn't great. And I had found out that my boss at the time was leaving and it crushed me. And I went into this like, oh my gosh, this like she's made it out. She's doing all these magical things. There was envy involved, right?
Mhm.
So I got to a place where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to leave. And through this heartache that I was dealing with, this stress, anxiety, sadness, like quite frankly, I was borderline depressed, right? And like it required me to then start taking actions on finding something else.
Mhm.
And I ended up finding this beautiful position that I'm now in, and it gave me the financial means to be able to get this home in the first place, right? And be able to
Mhm.
afford to live here. And but there was a lot of things that led up. There's a lot of lessons that I had to learn that led up to me getting to this moment.
Yeah.
And I did take advantage of the vid situation. And this house came on the market literally at the beginning when nobody was leaving their home. First
Mhm.
and only offer under asking, which is unheard of in this city now.
Mhm.
There's no way I could have done this with the market that's in place today.
Mhm.
So I think of all those little like moments that came together on top of the vision board that I created in Pinterest, right? All
Mhm.
the things that I actually wanted in my life. And that's crazy to me, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, I can't believe all
And
those things lined
how
up.
many houses did you actually go see?
3 or 4?
And that's compared to the 200 that I saw the year following. So I think another element too
Yeah.
is also trusting the process.
Right.
Trusting that you are taking the action steps,
Yeah.
daydreaming, releasing attachments from this state of lack or not receiving, and being open to receive, and it being maybe in a way that you are not expecting in the first place.
You know what? Now that you say that, when you say it like that, I thought about back during that time how hyper focused I was on finding a new home. At the time we were renting, and so our landlord said he needed to sell the property we were living in, and that was kind of a prompt. Um, as well as the other things, but like I was so focused on finding a new job that I wasn't hyperly focused on will I find the right house. I just
Mm,
trusted that we're going to be okay no matter what.
that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
That trust, it's important
Right.
for sure. Two words that also popped in when you first started talking about manifesting, and it's one of your favorite words, is patience and persistence.
Patience is not one of my favorite words, just so we're clear, we're using sarcasm.
But persistence in that reintegrating or integrating these new habits, these new ways of thinking, because this is, in a sense, instructing ourselves to perceive and think of things differently in a more positive light as well.
Absolutely. So audience, listeners, what is it that you want to manifest? What do you look like at that stage in your life? How does it feel? What do you do every day? And what actions can you take to start?
And how can you start incorporating the way you see yourself feeling in the future and bringing that into the now without having to wait for all the other things to be checked off on your list?
Important.
So I just want to review, provide those steps for y'all. First off, getting clear on what it is that you want. Be specific, be detailed, daydream, create Pinterest boards or collages, make a journal, make notes about how you see yourself feeling, the habits that you have after you've manifested, and set your intentions with the universe and with yourself that you are working to manifest, you are taking action to bring those things in. And then we actually start taking the action. Pick one thing, one detail, one habit, one routine that you see yourself doing in the future and start bringing that into the now. Focus on that one thing for 3 to 4 weeks. And then when you feel comfortable and confident in that new habit or routine or way of thinking, bring in the next. Have patience, have persistence, and trust the process, yourself and the universe, that whatever you need will be delivered to you, that you will receive. If you doubt this, that you will receive, you might be pushing it away. So making sure that you are open to receive and how, in whatever way it may come to you. So again, not limiting yourself on how you will receive. And then finally, don't forget to acknowledge all the things that you have done, all of the things that have changed, and everything that you are grateful for receiving, for being, and for experiencing. Be grateful for what is manifested.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, babe.
Thanks, babes. Oh, this is a great episode. I really hope that you guys, the audience, can start utilizing this information and being the creators of your own reality.
And with that,
don't forget to love first,
love last,
and love always. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.